Thank you for watching this Dear Systems tutorial. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the landed cost process. Landed cost is the total price of a product once it has arrived at the buyer's door. It includes the original price of the product, all transportation fees, customs, duties, tax, insurance, or any other costs outside of your direct purchase cost. These costs are typically applied by handling or fulfillment services under their own supplier invoice, which are then allocated to the correct original purchase. Expenses can also be allocated in this way to assemblies and stock transfers. Landed costs can also be allocated via the additional cost section of a purchase order or a manual journal. Now let's take a look at how to allocate landed costs to a purchase using additional costs. DEAR allows you to choose whether or not to allocate additional costs to a product's cost of goods sold, or COGS, during a purchase. These costs will increase the stock on hand value of your inventory. To allocate additional costs to a product on a purchase order, make sure the account specified for the additional cost is the same as the inventory account for the products. To exclude additional costs from the product's cost, simply set the account for those lines to an expense account that is separate from the account used for the products. Next, we'll allocate the landed cost using manual journals. Manual journals can be used to allocate expenses to products during or after purchase. You can find the Manual Journals tab in the purchase screen. Allocated expenses will increase the stock on hand value of your inventory. To capitalize on your manual journal expense, the debit account should be set to the inventory account. Select a relevant credit account, select a reference, and adjust the date as needed. And in the type field, you can select from the drop-down menu how the manual journal expenses will be distributed among the purchase order products. The available options are cost, where the landed cost will be allocated proportionally based on each individual line's cost; quantity, where the landed cost will be allocated proportionally based on the total quantity of products in the purchase order; weight, where the landed cost will be allocated proportionally based on the weight of the products in the purchase order; and volume, where the landed cost will be allocated proportionally based on the volume of the products in the purchase order. Ensure that products' weight and dimensions are properly configured for all products before selecting weight and volume options. Finally, there's manually, which allows landed costs to be manually added to each line as the user requires. If manual is selected, you'll see the option to view more. First, save the journal, and then click View More to display the purchase order invoice lines. Here you can allocate the manual journal amount to the invoice lines as required and authorize the manual journal to finish. Now we'll allocate the landed cost to a purchase from a separate invoice. Let's imagine we've just received an invoice from our fulfillment center for goods that were shipped a month ago. What we need to do here is create a purchase invoice using only the additional cost section. Navigate to the Purchase module, New Simple Purchase, and enter the relevant invoice details. Choose Blind Receipt to save some time. Fill in the invoice details as usual, and in the additional cost section, add your landed cost expense. Here I'll be including insurance of $150 and shipping of $350. Make sure the correct expense account is selected to write off the cost. You can then authorize the invoice. Now you'll see an expense button. By clicking on this, you'll be able to attribute the landed cost to the invoices they relate to. If you don't see an expense button, ensure that you've selected the correct expense account. Here you can choose to allocate the cost to one or multiple invoices, as well as stock transfers and assemblies. You can either manually assign a percentage of the cost to each invoice or choose to allocate automatically by value. When you're done allocating expenses, select Save, and these will be distributed to the purchase orders as manual journals. And that concludes this video on the landed cost process.